Welcome everyone to the LinkedIn for B2B Growth Show. I'm your host, Michelle J. Raymond, and this week we're talking about a way to grow your business, which I think if anyone's like me, they probably jumped over this step back in the beginning when we set out to grow our business, and that is the art and science of getting together an irresistible offer that sells. Now, I have brought in my expert on this topic, Angela. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Great to be here.
Look, we are going to have some fun on this one because I had some pretty funny experiences along the way, which I will save until we dive in. But tell me, how did you get started on LinkedIn? What's your journey been like?
Yeah, so I would say that I started my LinkedIn journey, I suspect not very dissimilar to probably a lot of people that are on LinkedIn and listening to this. I started off because years and years ago, 15 years ago to be exact, I had a look. It was 26th of September 2008. I heard about this social media platform for professionals. And I thought, oh, wow, that's crazy because I think I'd only created my Facebook account about a year before that. And I was like, oh, wow. So it's like this social media platform for professionals, and you put your entire CV on this LinkedIn. And that was just wild, that idea to do that, because I think at that time, I started off my career in biotech and pharmaceuticals, and I was quite heavily involved in inspections. Part of that process was we'd have to submit CVs so people could check that certain people in roles, they were qualified to do their roles. And that just felt like something that was so private, your entire history, your entire background, like all the jobs that you had. And I felt so privileged to be in that process to see, oh, all of these like VPs and all of these really successful people, like where did they start their careers? And I was like, wow, that's wild. Now it's on the internet. And I remember at the time that it felt very much like I was exposing myself to even put all of that information on there. So fast track, 15 years later, I think I basically stayed dormant on LinkedIn for about 12 years, where I only logged on to update when I had a job change or like I got promoted, and everyone would say, hey, congratulations. And yeah, it took me a while. Even like first 2 years of my business, I know, Michelle, you speak a lot about this first like nervousness of putting yourself out there. So first 2 years of my business, I didn't post anything on LinkedIn. Yeah, but it's been a journey. It's been a journey up until now.
I'm glad that you're here. I had a look. I joined LinkedIn in 2009. I downloaded my archive the other day, which I highly recommend everybody does. And my mum was my first connection. What I used for LinkedIn back in 2009 is certainly not how I'm using it today, but it was so cute to go back and go, okay, that's obviously when I didn't know what was going on the platform. I must have just got a job and thought I was all very grown up. So fast forward, and a few years back, I decided that I'm going to set up my own business, and off I went. And I'm a salesperson at heart, 20 years in B2B sales, always sold everybody else's products. They were, here you go, Michelle, here's a catalog, here's a list, off you go, sell. And off I would go. But what happened was when I started my own business, guess what? There was no products to sell. That was my job. And I just remember looking at it going, how am I going to sell this? What am I going to do? And so we're going to dive into this in case somebody's listening. I know that you've got so many great tips because I follow your content. I'm going to drop your LinkedIn profile into the show notes, and I recommend everybody follows your content and signs up for your newsletter because I've just discovered that and it's brilliant. Let's start at the beginning. Tell me, what's the actual overall process? If I was doing this thing with your experience, what's the overall process of building an offer that will actually sell? So that's the key point I want to focus on, one that sells.
Yes, that really is the key word here. There's really 4 steps in that process. I'm going to just jump right in. Basically, the 4-step process is the initial clarity. So this is like making sure that you've got the starting point and the foundations super, super clear. There is the hypothesis phase, there is the validation phase, and then there is the refine and scale and launch phase. Before I go into the deeper explanation of each of those, what I'll just say is when I first jumped into business, very similar to what you shared before, struggling in terms of how to package your expertise and in a way that's actually going to sell. And I would caveat that with, it wasn't even just about learning how to actually package all of that in a way that was going to sell, but also packaging in a way that was going to be sustainable, that I wasn't going to burn out, that I wasn't going to fall out of love with what I was doing, and jumping straight into consulting in that first year and realizing, hey, this actually isn't the lifestyle that I set out, and just trying to sell anything and everything just to keep paying bills, and realizing that essentially I became like a one-woman employee, except I had no support structure around me, and that felt really hard. Initially, when people start out with building their offer, They tend to start off straight in the hypothesis phase. Oh, I'm just going to put something out there. And they tend to stay in the hypothesis phase and just keep putting stuff out there. And it works, but it just takes a lot longer to get to that real, like that full, that perfect product. It just ignites in the market. So basically, in terms of the way that people tend to package things, where things tend to go wrong from what we've seen in the offers is they tend to be mixing offers. They tend to be going too wide. They tend to be just like custom building everything, like at the mercy of someone else's request. Whatever you want, I shall deliver.
We've been there. We've all been there. Can you do this? Uh-huh. Will you just pay me for it? Yeah, I hear you.
Exactly, exactly. So coming back to those first steps, that's why that clarity, the starting point step is so important. And essentially what that involves is you're getting all your ideas out. We call it the car park. Car park is an easy way to remember it because you've got all these ideas, like you're an entrepreneur for God's sake. It's for granted that you're creative. You've basically left behind the corporate world because you've got just too many ideas to be contained in the walls of your job or your role. And it's really easy to get distracted. It's really easy to get lost. And it's also really easy to just get pulled into things when you're in this place where like, yeah, I need to make money now. That clarity phase, pulling all of those things out, putting them in. And I see it as you've got this map in which you're then able to strategize where your right starting point is. And a lot of people, they don't really spend that time upfront to get that map together. They think, oh, I'm just going to jump into it. It's a bit like one of our team members, Bella. So she's our client success manager. Shout out to her. She's a rock climber. And when you're rock climbing, you got to strategize like what's going to be the rough path that you're going to take. You don't just say, okay, I'm going to reach for this rock and then I'm going to reach for this rock. Sometimes you have to improvise when you're in that moment, but it's useful to firstly know what the path is. So when you don't have that clear map to figure out where's your starting point, it's like kind of start jumping straight in, like I said, jumping straight into the hypothesis. So hypothesis phase is the part where most people are going to be very familiar. You've got this idea, let's get this out there. It's brilliant. Everyone's going to love it. And then the validation phase is the part where people really, I would say they fall down, they skip. This is the part where they start to get really discouraged because sometimes they get it right and that's brilliant. But in a lot of cases, they have a brilliant idea and it's so good. They're so excited because they've seen a problem in the market. Oh my God, everybody needs this. And they go out and it just, people don't get it. People don't get it.
I'm nodding here because as company pages are my thing, but 3 years ago, I can assure you they were nobody else's thing. But I had this really brilliant idea and I had a couple of clients. And so I was going hard, but everyone else was looking at me with crazy eyes going, what is wrong with this person? Why would you bother worrying about your company page? I was like, no, that's really good. And so I ended up going down company page route is by accident. Oh, that's a whole story for another day. But all of a sudden I had this product, but everybody else hated it. And I got to this point where I was stuck and conflicted. And my shout outs to Michelle Griffin, who thankfully told me to keep going. But I literally got to one point and I was like, everybody else hates it. I think I'll go eat worms. I'm going to throw this company page stuff away. And she's like, no, keep going. And so I'm just laughing as you're sharing the steps that we go through because
Yeah.
I can absolutely relate. And I'm sure others will too.
Yeah. And I'm really glad that you did stick to it because you had the right gut instinct that there was a gap, there was some sort of a need there. You felt it. But again, it's that validation phase in terms of, okay, so, but where? Like, where in the market? Like, what is the angle? What is the entry point? And I'll talk about that in a moment, the entry points, because there's always something there. And it's about connecting it with the market and a real need there. So yeah, so after the hypothesis phase is when you know that you've got something good, this is something the market wants to buy, and you know how to push that magic button to make sure that they actually want it. And then that's when you're ready to start refining it, start scaling it, looking at how do I do my marketing? How do I really start to scale the way I sell this? And most people, they skip straight from hypothesis to let's launch and scale.
So are you saying fake it till you make it is not actually a good strategy? Because that's kind of how I felt, but I don't beat myself up. I was creating everything from scratch and I'm really proud of where I ended up. But it's
Mm,
certainly, if I was to go back again and reach back and talk to myself 3 years ago, I
mm,
would wish that I had done a lot of these things, but I think you don't know what you don't know. And so I found my way through this. But let's say I was doing everything the right way and I
mm.
was planning this out. I've got my magical offer together. It's irresistible. It's going to sell like hotcakes. But how do I launch the offer? Like, how do I let other people know What's your best way that you've found?
So I love this because everybody talks about launch. And I think a lot of people, they have this misconception that an offer is like the final thing you do just before you launch. It's like you need to package stuff. I need to come up with a fancy name. I need to come up with something that's got, people are going to be like, "Ooh, that sounds really intriguing. That sounds really cool." And I need to come up with a landing page, and I need to come up with sales copy. I need to come up with collateral, and maybe hire like a graphic designer or VA, someone on Upwork to help me create some cool graphics so I can launch and have like cool images and stuff to launch it. So most people have that in mind when they think about launching. And all of those do have a part, but it's a little bit like people have this misconception that if I undergo a rebranding, that means I'm going to create a new logo. Those of you here that have more experience on the branding and also marketing space, like there's a lot more. There's a whole iceberg that undergoes behind a branding exercise. It's not just you pay £50 for someone to help you create a logo. When it comes to launch, my view, firstly, the word launch is a misconception. And I see launch basically in two parts. There's two launches that you ultimately do when it comes to your offer. You've got the first part of the launch, which is all about how do I get this offer selling? So that's the first launch. And then the second launch is once you've actually cracked that piece, it's how do I get this seen by as many people as possible? Which is, again, thinking of those 4 steps, like people tend to skip straight to that. It's just like, okay, I've got my idea now. Let's get it out there. Let's see how many people can see this as much as possible. And those two phases, they jump in and out of the other. So every time there's something that sort of gets tweaked or there's something that changes, you might want to launch a second part of your original offer. You have to go back into that first part, and it's sort of an iterative, like open process. It's not like one is defined. It's like A to B, and now you go B to C, and then that's it. It's not linear. So firstly, when it comes to launching, the first focus I would say is to focus on how do I actually get this sold? I see it as a prototype, your first prototype of how you're going to sell this. And once you learn that, your entire launch strategy and process wraps around it. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, because I come from a marketing background. I come into this already with a bit of marketing strategy and also product strategy, because that's also my background as well. But a lot of business owners, they don't have that background. So they think, oh, there's a marketing coach that's going to teach me a strategy to launch. And whether it's on YouTube ads, or it's like Facebook or LinkedIn pipeline generation, or it's like Instagram, but they haven't actually figured out what is their prototype sales process. And is this going to be the right system? Is this going to be the right strategy to launch that particular offer? So again, there's firstly 2 launches. But coming back to your question, which is the best way to launch, my recommendation here is always to start off with a soft launch. So soft launch is what we basically teach all of our clients when they're starting out in this process. And a soft launch is you're not going like the big bang, lots of graphics. So don't worry about the graphics. You're going to end up like wasting so much money investing in all this collateral that you're going to create, that you're probably going to find that maybe it does have some effect, but it's not going to monetize with the return on investment that you're really hoping for. And once you actually figure it out, you're probably going to have to then go back and change everything again. So focus on the soft launch process. You're sort of like reaching out to people that you already know are warm, and there's like a whole process behind that as well. And you're just like selling it to them. You're learning to sell it to them. You're learning that in that process of validation, figuring out the real angles, the real hooks, those entry points that I mentioned earlier. And then once you've actually figured that out, then you know what to wrap your entire marketing message and your collateral and your whole launch strategy behind. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Oh, look, it's just typical of me, as my friend Michelle Griffin would always tell me, Michelle, you just dive in the deep end with the sharks. And I do. And so I'm coming back and I'm listening to you about the processes, and that they're quite simple and obvious when you share them. And I'm sitting here nodding in agreement the whole way through. But my background in sales, 20 years of B2B sales, my instant thing was quick. Create something that was a product. Now go and just do what I do and do what I know and just go and sell it to as many people as possible. And this whole marketing thing that existed in other businesses that I worked in, a whole other team looked after it, not my problem. And to be honest, I didn't think they really did that much anyway. So I always apologize to the marketers I've ever worked for. That's a typical salesperson. Don't think that they did anything. So shout out to all of the marketers. I confess, I'm sorry. I didn't understand the power of what you were doing. Okay, let's look at this. So we've gone through our 4-step process in the beginning, and we've now done a bit of a soft launch, bit of a test just to see what's out there in the market and how we're going to sell this thing. But tell me, I want your insider knowledge, because you guys do this all the time and specialize in it.
Mhm.
What are things I need in that offer? What are the components that will make this thing absolutely sell? Because I know a lot of people, consultants, trainers, probably similar type business to my own, that are brilliant at what they do. They have years of experience. They have something that they've put together, and for the life of them, their savings are draining, they're going backwards, and they can't find the thing that makes other people want to buy their services. So, what advice can you give these people? What are the components that will actually change it from something that won't sell to something that will?
Yeah, it's such a common problem, and it's heartbreaking when it happens because there are so many people out there that are selling things when they might not necessarily have as in-depth. I'm not saying it's bad. There are bad offers out there for sure. There are definitely those that aren't actually really helping people to get to that final result. But there are so many experts that are so good at what they do. And this is really where, like, we see so much of it in our work. Most of our people that we work with, they've been doing what they do for like minimum of 10 years, if not 20, 30 years. And it's heartbreaking when they go through this process and they're like, oh my God, I can't even give it away for free. They can't figure it out. So there's really 4 components of that. So 4 steps and 4 components. Firstly, you got to know the outcome. And that's where a lot of people fall down because they focus on selling expertise. And I know I'm going to talk about that later on as well. They focus on selling knowledge, they focus on selling their experience and expertise and so on. And they don't actually know how to distinguish and separate that from the actual outcome. But then once people know the outcome, they then actually struggle with connecting it with the micro result. So the micro result ultimately is what is going to make people buy. Because a lot of us, we know so much about what we know, and we know exactly where we need to take people. We focus on the big transformation. It's like, oh my God, I need to get you to Oz, like Oz at the end of the yellow brick road. But it just feels so far away. It's something that most of your clients, they're just not there. They're not living and breathing and so passionate about this thing that you do every single day that they're thinking about it. And yes, they do want it, but it's like a dream. It's far away. They're not able to connect it. They don't even have enough belief in themselves yet that they're even able to attain that for themselves. So even if they hire you, you're the best expert, but for them it's, oh yeah, you know what, I'll do that in the next 5 years. First, I'm going to focus on solving whatever I need to solve today. So that's what I'm talking about with the micro result, whatever they need to solve today. Essentially that. And so that's basically the second component. You got to know the outcome, but you also got to wrap that around their micro result, the thing that they're trying to solve today. And there's 4 entry portals to that. So the 4 entry portals are typically going to be wrapped around number 1, a first step. So again, you got to take the first step on the yellow brick road in order to reach Oz. It's a band-aid solution. It's something that they think they need because they've got a wound and it hurts and they just need to like put a band-aid on it now. It's something that they really don't want to do that you can probably take off their hands, or it's probably going to be a symptom, which is a little bit similar to band-aid solution. So it's a symptom of something that they're feeling, a problem that they think they're having, and it's in the way of them actually seeing the big thing that they need to solve at the end. And you know that so well, but it's really hard for us as experts to be able to step back into their shoes and see the world and their problem from their perspective. So that's the second one, the micro result. You've got to have a clear start and finish point. So define journey, A to B. I teach that in some of my talks in terms of how to create that. And also you've got to make sure that you're able to present the value of this in the right way. And that's wrapped around a lot of things. There's the pricing. There is, who you are. Do you actually ultimately know what is the value that you give? And also the language that you're using to connect it to them. So those would be the 4 components of an offer that's going to sell.
My brain was thinking of examples of either people cramming so much in to justify a price or make
Mm-hmm.
themselves feel like they justify their position as the person that's offering the training. Just the way that we try and either undersell ourselves and our experience or jam so much in that it's overwhelming for the other person. And I've been through a bit of a journey with that myself. When I first started out in the business, I thought the more that I gave people in the training, the more helpful it would be, because my theory was I've been selling on LinkedIn for 9 years. I can save you 9 years of trial and error, give it
Mhm.
to you in 2.5, and I'm just going to put it all in and away you go. And all that people did was go, whoa, wow, that's a lot. And so I've pared back things and given people a step by step process. My LinkedIn for B2B growth is literally a step by step game plan. But in the beginning, it was the more I could tell you, the more important I was, the more you would
Mm.
pay. And it was overwhelming. And I think we forget when we're experts what it's
Yeah.
like to be back at the beginning. They don't want to be experts. They just
No.
want that problem, that band-aid problem to go away. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been an interesting journey for me on that one.
that's
And
right.
it's been about me, not about them. It's not the less because there's a ton of value, but I don't basically recite things like the LinkedIn help desk. I took it back and said, look, this is how it can support you in your goals. And you got into their shoes. I think that's what I'm hearing from you through all of the steps and the components. We have to get in the other side into their shoes and start looking at the
Mm.
world from the other side. Now, you did briefly mention about selling outcomes versus expertise. Tell us
Mm.
about that quickly, because I'm going to sit back and be very quiet and listen very attentively on this piece, because I think I'm guilty as charged as someone that's still a little bit on that expertise fence and not the outcomes. So help me
Mm.
out.
Yeah, I love what you were sharing earlier. It's such a common thing that we want to throw everything in because we're just so passionate. We're so excited about helping the person in front of us that we want to give them everything. Like, we don't want to hold back. You've got access to me. I've got all this stuff. I've got all these tools and I can help you. But it's overwhelming. Like you said, they can't process, they can't digest it. When it comes to selling your outcomes versus expertise, the best way I can probably really explain it is if you think about cooking or baking. So, outcomes is your cake, right? Outcomes is the cake. And your expertise is all of the raw ingredients, but all of the raw ingredients that you can make to be able to make any cake. So you can make your chocolate mud cake, you can make your dark forest cake, you can make your red velvet cake, you can make your vanilla cake, all of that stuff. But if you chuck all of the ingredients in, it's going to be like probably not very nice tasting cake. So it's about separating that so that you've got the outcome and then you've got the raw ingredients. And as experts, we need to learn to hold back. And that comes back to being able to distill that outcome, that micro result, not overwhelming them. And the crazy thing is, going through this journey ourselves in our business, like, we've gone through so many iterations to get to where we are today. And we started off with literally like throwing everything in the kitchen sink, and we weren't profitable as a business. And no wonder, because like we were hiring people because we had so much to do for the clients that we couldn't do it just with us. We had to hire extra hands, but then we had to then pay our staff, and we weren't able to justify raising the prices because it was just already getting so expensive, and it still wasn't profitable. And that was ultimately happening. And what was really frustrating is that we weren't getting as strong testimonials as we are right now, because our clients were so overwhelmed that they didn't know what they were giving testimonials or what they were getting or what they were buying. By the end of the whole process, they'd forgotten the reason they came to us in the first place. So the more we stripped out and the more we distilled and the more we focused, it actually got better results for clients. It was more consistent, and yeah, it just made it a lot clearer for clients also to advocate and talk about us because they knew what people that would come to us would be getting.
So much easier. And I love the idea. And we sit here and I'm again nodding my head, going,
Mhm.
absolutely, that would work. But the reality is, when I try and apply it to my own products, my own business, there's that tug of war again that's going between, I want to shove everything in the kitchen sink in so that you think I'm giving you value. So you'll pay me what I think I'm worth. And so all the emotional stuff gets tied in, and it's my emotional stuff. And again, I've taken my focus off what's going on for the person that I want to work with. And I think, again, we keep coming back to that. What's in it for them? What's in it for
Yeah.
them? And it's just really important. But one of the things I saw in one of your posts when I was doing my research, as you've been poking around in your profile and content, but one of the points that you made somewhere in there was where people go wrong and why they're not actually selling their offers is because
Mm.
sometimes they're actually marketing them, not selling them. Can you tell a little piece about that? Because I think it's such an important distinction that, yeah, there's a difference between those two things.
Yeah. I think a lot of experts, they come from large organizations where sales and marketing are clear and very distinct functional pillars. But the thing is, when you're starting out in business and you're trying to create your offer, like, It's almost everything is so tightly wound around each other. Like you can't really distinguish that. The sales, the product, the marketing, like it's all like a very tightly wound ball, and it has to be treated as such. The initial focus when you're starting out in business is really about making sure that you can monetize. Because if you're not monetizing what you do, like honestly, you have a hobby, and it could be a very admirable hobby because you're trying to help people and you've got an altruistic vision behind it, but it isn't a business. Your first goal of the business is to learn how to monetize what you do. And so that's why it is so important when people go into this process, again, thinking firstly about that initial prototype, not the prototype of your product. So I want to make that clear distinction, because you do need that as well, your product, your offer, but your prototype of how you're going to monetize this thing, how you're going to sell it. And my business partner, who you also know quite well, she's an amazing salesperson. She's been doing sales for the last 18 years. And basically, it was like a moment for me as a marketer. I realized I was going into this all wrong. I called her up one day. I was like, oh my God, Christina, I've been going around this all wrong. It's all about the sales. It's not about the marketing. It's all about how to sell this offer. So actually, Michelle, what you were saying earlier around your experience, oh, my sales background, I just need to go out and sell it. So definitely there was some advantage there, I would say, in terms of the way that you approached it. But it's clicked for me. Like I had all of the toolkit. I had everything in terms of strategy, launch, campaign experience, like all these different things I'd learned from different courses, stuff that I had done. But ultimately, I needed to first figure out how to actually sell this offer before I was able to wrap the marketing strategy around it to enhance that. So that is really the main difference around selling and marketing offers. But like I said, in the beginning, when you're starting out, it's really like you got to see it as a combined thing. It's almost inseparable.
Definitely. Now, my advice to people out there from a LinkedIn social selling perspective is doing a post about your product isn't necessarily, that's not selling your product. The other thing that I would say is for those of you who don't even post about your products and what you do, it's time to start adding that into the mix. Whoever put it out there that you shouldn't be selling on LinkedIn or in some way, shape, or form, it's wrong to do that. Don't be salesy. This is why you're not selling your offer, because no one knows what you do. You're not telling them, you're not asking them, you're not even giving them a chance. So you're sharing all this value, and then that's where you leave it and you don't connect the dots. So I love that you found the balance. I've also had to find the balance and admit some defeat, as I said, on the marketing side of things. I think you need a good balance of both and to
Yes.
understand both. And if you don't, then please reach out to Angela and her business partner, Christina, who will be back from maternity leave at some point, because they're both brilliant together, because they come at things from a sales and a marketing side, and just the blend is brilliant. I'll certainly be making sure that people can reach out to you to get more in-depth detail around everything that we've covered, because I know you could just talk for hours and hours. And I've heard some of your talks on just smaller points out of what we've covered today. But I have one final request. Somebody that's been listening in here today, what is one actionable tip that you think you can give them? If an offer's not selling, what do you think is something that they could take an action today that might help change that?
Yeah. My actionable tip is that remember that your clients are already telling you the answers, people that you have helped, people that you have worked with. If you haven't already, make sure that you are, obviously with permission, recording conversations that you have. So the sales conversations that you have, go back and mine those calls. Go back and mine those calls, because the answer is there. God knows I've spent like hundreds of hours mining our cause, but also mining clients' cause. I'm just like sitting there tinkering. The answer is here. The answer is here. But go back and re-listen to that, because that is like a gold mine of information. And sometimes you need to read between the lines. But sometimes what is more often happening is that we're so blinded by our knowledge of the solution that they need that we're not actually listening to what they're telling us that they need. What is the outcome they're looking for? It's like you said, Michelle, very often it's coming from a good place. It's coming from because we want to help them. We really want to get them to where they need to go. But we're actually losing sight of the thing that they're facing and they really want your help with. And I've got so many examples of that. Just even yesterday, we were going through that with someone that we're working with. I think it's really about just going back, mining those cores and listening out for the outcome that they're telling you that they need, and comparing it with the outcome that you're thinking you're selling in your marketing, in the things that you're saying, and see if there's a disconnect there.
Oh my God, that is brilliant. And I'm going to go back and listen to this. And I'm going to put that one in the show notes and also in the clips to promote this episode, because I think that's brilliant. I think there is such a crossover between what I want them to get versus what they want out of the sessions, me
Mm,
and my business. And if I can just tweak that, I'm sure that my conversion rates will go from what they are, which is quite high, and I'm happy with them. But just to get that next 10%, next
mhm.
20% of additional revenue that comes in. This has been absolutely brilliant, as I knew it would be. And I'm going to encourage everybody to reach out and connect with you, Angela. As I said, your contact details will be in the show notes so that anybody can come and find you on LinkedIn. Thank you for everything that you've shared today. I have got my brain running a million miles an hour right now, going, Michelle, go and think about this. How else can I put together my offers that will really speak to those who I want to help grow their business? And so I appreciate you sharing your knowledge so generously today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It has been fabulous. And to everybody else, I will catch you on the next episode. Cheers.